Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast. We are Jeff and Terra Mattsons, a husband and wife team who is shrinking the integrity gap in our own lives and helping others do the same. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach, and Terra is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We believe that if you have a following, you are a leader, and how you lead matters. Whether you are leading in the home, work, or community, we are bringing you biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom to help you in every relationship that matters most to you. None of us do this perfectly, but we are leaning into the reality of our humanity and profound wisdom of grace. Today, I have a special guest with me. I'm interviewing Jeff today about fatherhood and what it means to actually shrink the integrity gap as a father. We talk a lot about leaders being those in the home, the work, and community. If you've got a following, you're a dad, you are a leader. And so what better way to spend some time talking about shrinking the integrity gap around Father's Day? And Jeff, I can attest that you're a really good father. You walk with lots of dads in lots of spaces. And I think I just want to get curious. I'm sure I'm going to learn a few things about you. So talk first a little bit about who you are. Maybe people are new to this podcast. This is the first time they're listening. What's your experience as a dad and your role with working with men?
Well, first, thanks for the compliment, and I hope I can continue to live up to that. I am 45 at this year and been a dad for 15 years. Our oldest is going to be 16 soon, and then our youngest is 13 right now, and will be 14 not too long from now. So 2 daughters we have, and it is one of the highest privileges of my life to be a dad. And many of you dads out there, you remember that feeling that you had when your kids came into the world, and it's just like unbelievable. What a miracle. And then, some of that newness and excitement wears off because you're up at 2 or 3 in the morning, holding your baby as they have a blowout and puke on you at the same time. So all of that just is good material for now in these teen years when I remind my daughters of my love for them.
I love it. Well, your role as an executive coach and many years also in pastoral ministry and lots of different places that you walk with men and women, but particularly with the men, what do you say are, in general, kind of the biggest struggles for dads, especially in the world today?
Yeah. One of the biggest struggles that men have, and this including myself, was earlier on in my career and journey in vocational work, was just getting wrapped up in my identity with what I do, as opposed to who I am, and sort of the bigger calling, the bigger identity pieces. It's just so common for us as guys and gals too. More gals are in the workplace today than men, actually, to be wrapped up in the things that we do, the power, the title, the paycheck, the benefits, and that's really an error, and it's a path that's going to lead to emptiness. When we understand how God made us, and for those that know God and are followers of Christ, really, even those that don't know Him yet, we're all looking for the same thing, and we're all looking for meaning and purpose, and where do I belong, and what am I supposed to be doing? And there's so much obligation out there. I got to just provide for my family. I mean, that's check the box. At least I did that, or so on and so forth. But first of all, God says, He defines who He is, and then He defines who we are. We were created in His image, both male and female, in His likeness. It's amazing and a mystery in that. And when you really get down to life and meaning, when you believe that God is who He says He is, as we discover and find in the Scriptures, and when we really believe who He says we are as His children, created in His image, and then He gives us instructions on how to live and what our purpose is. Our purpose isn't self-seeking. Our purpose is others seeking, and it's in concert with Him. And And when we get that priority right, then other things begin to come into focus, and we're not chasing after status and attention and all these other things that are really easy and natural to try to follow and bend towards in our careers and so on and so forth. But that's one of the big challenges that men particularly have, is finding their worth in the things that they do and the sort of the statuses that they keep, when God says you're worth it just because I made you. And that frees us up in such huge ways to not to be able to be givers rather than takers in our work and in everything else that we do.
Well, you openly shared your age and you're 45. And so these are things that you've learned at this stage of your life. Is it fair to say you're midlife?
All right, take it easy.
And that sense of recognizing you're made in God's image, that your value and worth isn't found in the workplace. In fact, that comes mainly from the curse in Genesis 3, where we see that toiling and hard, there's going to be hardship in work.
Yep.
And so that restoration process of redeeming relationship with Him, with God, and with wife and with kids. Talk a little bit about the practical side of how God has done that in your life, like the shifting from your value being in what you do to actually relationship with your daughters, because in practice, that can be really hard after a long day of work and you come home and you kind of don't know how to connect the dots sometimes as dads, to connect with our kids.
Yeah, well, practically speaking, I guess I should say that this is in no way a cop out to say that now I work less hard, or that I am less intentional about the quality of work that I do or
That's
what have
fair.
you. No, I mean, all the more reason to bring the best that you have, but it's the motive behind that. I try to bring the best that I have to honor God, who gave His best for me, and I don't feel like I have to. I want to, and it's because of the relationship I have with God, and it's a privilege and an honor to do that. Um, so just to make a note on that, that's my mindset into the work that I get to do, and it's a privilege to wake up. Actually, having almost lost my life a couple times in my life, every day is very meaningful. I know what it feels like to have that almost snatched out and away from me, and it's I wake up every morning and I ask the Lord, "What do you have for me today?" And that's a question of excitement, even on darker days, or struggles through different seasons of struggle. It's still a question I ask because it orientates my mind and my heart and my body to what I know to be true, and that is that He's good, that He has a plan for me, and my purpose is found in Him. My worth is found in Him, and life is an adventure. So, practically speaking, taking that mindset into my relationships, this is where for us the concentric circles really kind of came out of, which is helping us to order our priorities in life. For me, a relationship with God, and this is also, I think, His order in that is primary. Secondarily, if you're married, your relationship with your spouse comes next. And if you have kids, your relationship with your kids comes after the relationship with spouse and after God. And then there's lots of freedom outside of that for different things to be filled in there, but this really has helped me live on purpose. So with our daughters, well, first and foremost, hopefully I'm giving my best energy after my relationship with God, and from that to you, my wife. And I want to continue to grow in my abilities to do that practically, not just with how I talk about it, but how that shows up in ways that meets needs and wants and connection. And you know that I'm on mission to do that better and better every day. And I hope that I'm growing in that. After that, of course, then our daughters. I mean, those girls, it's so important that they see that you come before them in not just word and but also in deed and practice, and that they know what it looks like that a husband um, will lay down his life for his wife, not just in a moment, but in the day to day, in the rhythms and of normal life and living, and and then for them after that, what that looks like. Having two daughters is I want them to see what it looks like as best as I can model it, and I'm certainly not perfect, but as best as I can model it, of what it looks like to have a healthy relationship. For me, trying to invest time and energy with them, and I did it from the start of their lives, and I'm still doing it today. Hopefully, we'll get the opportunity, even though that changes over a lifetime, relationships with dads and daughters, to be able to be a constant presence, tuning to them and listening to them in their lives, and taking an interest in them, giving them a healthy sense of power and autonomy in our relationship so that they're prepared when they launch for the real world. that they would have a voice, that they would also allow others to have a voice, that they would be able to stay present with people. Um, it's such a privilege. It's hard. It's the hardest relationships, right? Being a parent is the hardest job, but it's so incredible and rewarding through the highs and the lows.
I do appreciate, and I guess attest to the daily practices that you're putting these principles in, and I watch you pursue me and our daughters in intentional ways. So, but our audience doesn't get to listen or get to be in and see all of that. So, walk through, give examples of what does it look like to give your daughters a voice, and this works for sons too, to be able, because dads have a presence about them, and sometimes they don't recognize the power in the room they have. Some dads are on the spectrum where they feel powerless. They feel like mom, rules the roost and whatever mom says goes. And then you've got the other side where it's what dad says and everybody is bowing down to dad. And we're trying to bridge the gap of this more balanced place of there's equal power in the family. We all know our role and our place. So in practice, what does it look like when you give our daughters voice?
Yeah, well, I mean, no one can take the place of a father's voice in their kids' lives, and no one can take the place of a mother's voice in their kids' lives. God designed that to be very unique and special, and not one is more powerful than the other. It's significant. Both are. And you and I are a team. We really view that as a team. We believe in the scriptures in Ephesians that talk about mutually submitting to one another as unto Christ. And we try to do that. Sometimes we don't do that very well.
A little pride. It's a little stubborn
and
on Jeff's part. Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we believe that to be true, and we try to live that out. And when we make mistakes, we are quick to repair. And we're a couple of those examples of how I try to give our girls a voice. Here's what's so important. I mean, just being a bigger person than them, even when they were little. Now they're teenagers, and I'm almost looking eye to eye with our oldest. But there is a huge power dynamic, and there still is, and there always, I think, will be, and God designed it that way. So if I'm wanting them to feel like they have a healthy sense of their voice matters, like God says it does, one of the ways in which I did that was just to put myself not inappropriately. I mean, I'm always their dad, but to show and to model what it looks like to make their voice important and valuable. So when I could tell that body language or a word or the tone of my voice impacted them, and my oldest, for example, kind of got quiet and would shut down, I needed to pursue her. And I would knock on her door and ask permission to come in. And in doing that, I model what I think what God wants us to model, which is in relationships, we seek permission. It's a healthy way of doing that. He did that for us. He knocks on the door, the scriptures say, and he doesn't beat it down, and he waits for us to open. And so Addie would say, come in, and I would come in, and then I would sit in a space where I could talk with her a little bit separated so I wasn't smothering her. And I just said, I noticed something. And the questions that I generally would frame it as is, how did I impact you? And I would wait. And she would, if I was patient enough, she would share. And then I had an opportunity to repair. Now, this is me not trying to be my kid's best friend or anything else, acknowledging that I'm the father, but as the father coming underneath because of my love for her, wanting her to know that how I impacted her matters to me because she matters to me. And listening to her and giving her a chance to have that voice and to express, and then to repair. And with her, have to repair in detail because she's a detail girl. The injury takes place in detail, so the repair has to happen in detail. And as soon as I ask for forgiveness, and that is a powerful thing that God set up, of course, for all of us to do with each other. It's so much bigger than I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Is a healthy way of putting yourself as, if you will, the perpetrator of the offense, whatever it is, underneath the other person. Now, of course, our oldest, she's so quick to say, yes, Daddy, I forgive you. And then I knew with her that the repair was complete. And that's what matters to me. And now that it's different with our youngest daughter, but some of the principles remain the same. She learned in that process that her voice matters and that trust in our relationship and repair was worth it. And Dad apologizing and asking for forgiveness is powerful in this dynamic while she's in our home. And I think it's going to set her up. I pray that it will set her up for success in having a voice and knowing what healthy relationships look like outside of our home.
There are so many things that you're intentional about there, and that's come over learning over time what girls and what kids need and what they need at developmental places, recognizing the power you have. But I also hear that you've taken time to get to know each of our girls. And I think that's so vital for dads is to tune in instead of parenting kind of the masses, because I said so, y'all go. But knowing you know our oldest is a detail girl because you spent time attuning to that. And I think dads do have so much power, a beautiful power to uplift a child and to speak life into who they are so that when they go off into the world, our oldest know what healthy repair looks like. They know how to acknowledge when they've been hurt. They know how to acknowledge when they've done wrong, to ask forgiveness. And as girls, particularly, that equity with you as the man in their life is really powerful. So I want to ask you, because I'm thinking about the dads that I've sat with over the years. And many of them feel really frustrated because they so long to be a good dad like this, but they didn't see it modeled. They don't know what it looks like. And so they're going, how did you learn this, Jeff? Like, where is this something? If I didn't have this modeled, I didn't have a good dad. And in some cases, men will even use that as an excuse. So how do we help call them forward and to say, you can shrink the integrity gap of your own life here. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a dad that was healthy or safe in my life. In fact, my parents divorced at 16. And I will say that if you're in a situation where you didn't have healthy modeling and there was difficulty, significant or so on and so forth relating to you and your dad or fatherly figure, that is a disadvantage initially. But I will say that for me, it first drove me to try to figure out what healthy looked like. So part of the redemptive story in my life is God it started with fear, and that's where, again, just the evil one, Satan himself, was trying to inject my heart with fear that I'm going to be, what was the lie, spoiled goods because of what took place in my family. What Christian godly woman would want to be with me someday? And this is back when I was in high school, but thinking and feeling these things. How am I ever going to have a family that's going to be healthy, so on and so forth. Those were initial fears that were planted in that time. And maybe some of you can relate to some of those fears and lies that you believed for a while. But I'll tell you what, God redeemed that stuff in my life, and he began to help me to understand that those were lies, and that the truth is that he's the God of the universe, and he is the God of me, and he can do anything, and he's in charge. And he can definitely help me to become a person that understands what it means to be a godly husband or a godly father, and that's a process and a journey, and no one does that perfectly. And so he got me thinking as I began to reject those lies and begin to embrace his truth, again, his voice, the power of the Father, his voice speaking into my life, the truth about who he says that he is and who he says that I am, changed everything for me. It changes everything for everyone when we really lock in on that. And I began to see, okay, I got hungry. It went from being afraid and wanting to try to figure things out to being excited and getting on it early. And this is also part of God's journey and why I'm able to do what I'm doing today, and the work that we continue to do today to try to help people in healthy relationships in the home and workplace and in the community. So I began to read. I began to attend. Man, I was attending marriage conferences before I was married. I mean, I was just excited about trying to do and to be equipped for however God would use me and whatever he had prepared. So parenting books and parenting seminars. And I mean, there's so many incredible resources out there. We're trying to provide resources that are free and accessible, like this podcast, to help others in their journey because we were helped in our journey. So I would say that, that there's just wonderful resources that you can get in touch with and contact. Many churches have programs or classes and workshops on parenting, on being a husband or a wife or in marriage, and lots of resources at livingwholehearted.com that we point people towards enhancing and growing and being equipped in their relationships. But going back to really quick about time with our girls and getting to know them. Here's one of the other things too that was just really key, and I I tend to believe that it's so much more important to do this earlier and then trying to do it later. It's not impossible to get access to your kids when they're later, if you were had difficult relationship with them in terms of quality time. But it is easier when you start earlier, taking them out on special times, just you and them, dad and daughter or son, and building time in relationship with them apart from mom, apart from siblings, and whether it's, a couple hours or overnights are really cool and very powerful things can happen in relationships between a father and their kids during those experiences. And it can look differently. It doesn't always have to be a camping trip or some sort of other adventure, but different dads and kids have different bents. The focus is not necessarily just to invite your kids to the things that you love to do, but asking them, what would be a fun thing? I want to do something with you. You want to plan this together? Or if you have an idea about what they would already love, surprise them with time. Talk to them about the fact that you're going to take them out, and you're carving these days on the calendar in advance, and they get anticipation building, and then you experience it. And I just got to do this with our youngest, Nevaeh. I waited 13 years. I wanted to take her on an annual fly fishing trip that my fishing partner and I self guide. It's 43 river miles. It's 4 days on the water, and I did this with our oldest 2 years ago when she was 13, and my fishing partner, his oldest daughter, and we just did it for our two youngest daughters, and it was amazing. The girls knew that we wanted to do this. For a long, long time, and it was their turn, and man, we had an incredible experience together. Just four of us, two dads, two daughters, on the oars together, two rafts, camping and fly fishing the Deschutes River, and we made memories that will last a lifetime. And that was just for Nevaeh, and her sister's trip was her sister's trip and different. And now they're part of the club, in a sense together. They have those shared memories, but each of their own unique experiences.
What that tells a child is that they're worth your time. And I love the lowering the bar of just planning it together with your child and being just who you are as a dad. So for you, you're a fly fisherman, you love the river, and so sharing that with your daughters. But for other dads, a wide variety of interests and passions, and so I think it's true for dads. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think so many dads think I should be that way, or I'm not that kind of dad, or I don't really even know where to start. And so I think one of the things I've watched you participate in, more than just reading books and conferences and classes, which I know you've participated in, but also just being around other men, other dads. So like this dad to dad, daughter to daughter, that is a way of sharpening for dads, especially those that didn't get good modeling. But you have a lot of really good men around you, and you are sharpening other men in the same way as dads. Speak to that about what dads can do for one another and their differences and strengths.
Yeah, well, here's another example of our needing to live out what we believe, and the scriptures are kind of clear about the fact that that we were all created differently, and that we need each other, and not one person's gifts or wiring or bend is better than the other. We actually are designed body of Christ, different parts. He's the head. There's only one head, but we need each other, and so being together around other guys who are different than me, is good. It's a good thing, and we share our common love for our daughters, our sons, our kids, our wives, our faith, and as iron sharpens iron, the scriptures say, so one man sharpens another, and I've been really just, this last year I got involved with after a little season of break, I think, from community. I done something we called Rogue Glory, which was just a gathering once a month for guys around campfire and just cater food and share the word and share life and prayer. I got involved with a Bible study. I was got wind that a few fellas in my community that I had just a acquaintance relationship with. Couple of guys I had got a chance to coach soccer with. They started a Bible study, and I was like, man, is there an extra seat in there for me?
You invited yourself?
Well, I did. I really wanted to be a part of this. It was like, this is so cool that you guys are doing this, and they're businessmen and just good guys in the community. I only just knew them as just people. I thought, "Oh, they're fun. They're good guys. They're professionals." Anyway, they said yeah, and so I've been going, and it's just been so awesome. Here we're all different. We have we got shared faith, a desire to be good husbands, good fathers, and to integrate our faith and the ethics of our faith into our workplace and just our whole lives. And we're trying to do that together. And it's amazing. None of us work together. We're all in different spaces and have different roles and responsibilities, but it's been so encouraging. And every single one of us, man, we look forward to those meetings, and it's rare that we miss. We are. It's just so fun, and different people in the group have known the Lord at different lengths of time, and so we've got this incredible energy that is good for us. That those that have been following Christ for a long time, and those that are newer and are experiencing, it's just amazing. And so I'm so grateful for my band of brothers. We call ourselves the Bible Bros. That sounds so cheesy, but man, it's just I don't care. It's awesome.
Well, I do think that is encouraging to people who are listening and recognizing that that is a need that they want, and that it's okay to invite yourself to something, and if they say no, you can still start your own. But if you're invited into something, to have the courage to say yes too, because there is a stereotype that men are like not the relational ones and they don't need that stuff, and the truth is desperately we need that.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's a principle I believe to be true. But you isolate anything, and it's probably dying.
Mhm.
And men have a tendency, probably more than women, to isolate and to be kind of lone ranger. We're already here in the Great Northwest, and our pastor uses this term all the time: radical individualism, and that's so true. We have that kind of mindset of being so independent, and there's the Northwest kind of pioneer spirit vibe. I have that. I mean, in terms of just loving Northwest values in many ways, and yet I need relationships, and I need to be known. All of us as humans were created to be known and to know others, and I've just given up into that truth, and I'm thankful because it's powerful when you are in relationship with others that are safe relationships, and you're sharing life, the highs and lows. And in our Bible Bros gatherings, man, we are talking about we're digging into the scriptures, and it's just so exhilarating to kind of hear from each other as to how the Holy Spirit's revealing truth as we look at the truth. We're talking about how that integrates into our lives, the struggles of our lives, and the joys. Sharing prayer requests. It's just we men need relationships. So if you're out there listening to this, and you're kind of that lone ranger that sort of is like, you know what, I don't need this, I don't need that. Well, it's just a matter of time before you realize that you are out of um, you're out of touch with those core needs that God created in all of us to have. And you don't have to wait until you realize that you have no one in your corner to do something about that. If you're a person that didn't have a healthy model of fatherhood in your life, or that doesn't mean that you're disqualified, or that you can't figure this thing out. No, get around others. Look for mentors, people that that you look to, and you can see. Not that they're perfect, but they're ahead of you, and they've had success. They've been in the trenches. They've raised kids, and they have some godly wisdom. And ask to meet with them. You won't regret that. You won't regret that.
Well, let me just mirror back some of the key principles that you've alluded to here through as you shared your own story and as you walked with other men. But dads, to spend intentional time one to one with their kids and to invite them in the process. And it can be small little dates and time, or overnighters and bigger experiences. That you're not disqualified if you didn't have a good model. And I would just say you still need to, intentionally pursue God and relationship with other men if you had a good model. In fact, if you had a good dad, you probably see that he had good relationships with other men. And even men, one of the key things I'll say, even though this is not a podcast about sexual integrity, but we do know that men who really struggle with sex addiction and pornography, we can often link that to not knowing how to do emotional intimacy. And so it runs interference with having other male relationships and not knowing how to connect with spouses and with your children. And so there is a link here of learning how to do emotional a relationship with other men. So starting with Bible study or asking a man to be mentoring you, and counseling's a good place to practice and to understand our stories and what's playing a role here.
Yeah, if you're stuck in the addiction of pornography or other sexual addiction, what Tara just said there, a light bulb just went off. Yeah, where do you have close relationships? Probably not like close relationships with other men, and it's running interference in the relationships that you deep down inside know you want to have better relationships with. Your spouse, your kids, other men. So do not let that go by and struggle alone. You need the help, and the answer towards breaking free from sexual addiction or pornography is turning towards relationships that can help you. And you gotta trust somebody, and that takes a lot of risk. But you gotta get some help there, and that's the only way to really break through and to get free from that, because it's so addictive, so destructive. And there's hope out there, man. There's definitely hope out there. So we have resources at Living Wholehearted about that particular struggle. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that is also something that is really prevalent amongst men, not just men. Of course, we know that women are struggling with that as well, and kids now more than ever before. It's an epidemic.
We
It's
have several podcasts, if you look back on our episodes, addressing this, both as adults and then helping our kids in the process. But the link is emotional intimacy, being able to be known and to be able to be honest and to be able to feel and to feel connected on a deeper level is a huge prevention for all of these maladaptive coping strategies that we all have in funky ways. And so
Mhm.
they aren't going to save us from them, but they're definitely helping the factor of prevention. So thanks for sharing. Is there any last word of encouragement you want to leave fathers as it's Father's Day season, and some dads had a rockin' Father's Day and others were deeply disappointed. So leave them with a word of encouragement.
Well, we need more fathers that will follow our heavenly Father's example, and the example that Christ set in our lives through the Scriptures. We need more dads that will take that servant leadership approach, and that doesn't mean that you can be perfect. You're not. No one does that perfect, but we need to all be growing in that area. The world is desperate for dads and homes that will lead in that way through servant leadership and model the way of what it looks like to repair when things get broken, and to really get on the path that God's designed for us. That really is a huge, huge part of the healing that God wants to see this world have, is when dads and moms do that in the home. That's the source of where so many things go wrong, and it doesn't have to be. The only way it starts to go right is actually through intention, through humility, through prayer, through being equipped, and trying to be consistent over time. And God help us in that. And if you're a dad out there listening, I hope that this is encouraging to you, right where you are today. God can orientate your heart towards His if you look to Him and begin to trust who He says that He is and who He says that you are, and then not forget that. Not forget that.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about how you can check out the resources that Jeff is offering these days. So you can look at the Dear Matson series, where he and I are offering encouragement, just little tips for parents, moms and dads. You can check that out. You can also read the book Shrinking the Integrity Gap, where Jeff shares a lot of his own journey, but also a lot more in how we can shrink the gap in our home and our work in our community. And I'm his co-author, his co-pilot there. And if people want to reach out or learn more about our resources, where do they go?
Yeah, well, to livingwholehearted.com is a great space to do that. We also are on social and you can list those, Tara.
You can go to We Are Living Wholehearted on Facebook, or you can check out living_wholehearted on Instagram. And Jeff, is there a reason why you're not on social media?
Yeah, I don't really like it.
Okay, that's that. So you can't really find them there, but you can find, if you want to reach out to us, go to Living Wholehearted, and we'll make sure Jeff gets that message. Want to share this
Absolutely.
with another dad, leave a review. It just helps other people find out more about us and what we're up to and helping resource you as a leader. And at the end of the day, no matter where you are, one of our greatest truths that we cling to, Jeff and I, is that God is meeting us right here, right now, and He is doing His thing with where we are right now. So often we think we should be further along. We shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah, He's for us.
And He's for us. And so He's using you, Dad, right where you're at. And if you're wanting to be a dad, get a mentor, someone that you look up to, and start learning even before you have kids. Follow Jeff in those footsteps. He was doing that early on. So we're so grateful for our community of those who are leaning in and joining us in the efforts to shrink our integrity gaps. And we just want to remind you to be the leader that you would follow.
This podcast is powered by Living Wholehearted, Courageous Girls, and the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us in this critical movement of shrinking our integrity gaps between what we preach and live.